Welcome back to The Price of Business. I'm your host, Kevin Price, talking to you about you and your business, Robert Kiyosaki. Wow, Robert, you've been a guest on the show, of course, before, many times over the years. Always love having you on. I had nothing to do with that choice of music, but it sure is appropriate in light of your book, Second Chance. You're, of course, the author of Rich Dad, Poor Dad, which I consider one of the most influential and important books out there in terms of creating entrepreneurship in our country. Your book, Second Chance, deals with the fact that we've got some pretty gloomy things happening both globally and domestically when it comes to the economy. As always, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Kevin. I appreciate it.
What do you think about, first of all, let's start with the book, Second Chance. Kind of give us the elevator pitch, if you would, for the book.
Well, Second Chance is about rethinking what you've been thinking. And, you know, like the first lesson, I think, when it comes to life is, who are you listening to?
Yes.
You know, if you trust your government and your banker, you might be in big trouble today. But Rich Dad, Poor Dad is about I had a choice between listening to my poor dad, who was an employee, good man, you know, and my rich dad was an entrepreneur. And they say exactly opposite things. So if a person says, I'm going to be an entrepreneur, but they're an employee today, so they make the transition, the first thing they have to do is kind of jettison the ideas that employees have. Mm-hmm. And that's where it starts.
Your dad not only was an employee, but he was a doctor in education. He was a leader, really a leading authority in Hawaii in education. You know, so he's the kind of guy that everyone who is an employee and comes from an employee background intuitively goes to for help, and that kind of help leads them to multi-generational poverty.
Right. You know, like my Dr. Ralph Kiyosaki is the same as Dr. Ben Bernanke.
Yeah.
It's funny, isn't it?
Yeah, that's absolutely.
And you know what my academic friend says, well, you're one of those guys that you don't like intellectuals, do you? No, I said, I don't like bad advice.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And that's what it comes down to. And it seems practical and it seems sensible, but there's all kinds of rules employees break if their goal is to really become affluent. Talk about those goals.
Well, when you shift from employee to entrepreneur, the biggest shift is in your emotions. You know, there's two things that run money, fear and greed. Those are the only two things. So if your fear of failing is so high, you'll probably fail because you cannot get rid of that failure. And if you're too greedy, you'll probably fail also. So there's to be able to control your emotions as you're taking the ups and downs of being an entrepreneur. So it's called emotional intelligence. And as you know, when markets like today are crashing, emotional intelligence isn't very high.
Yeah, that's exactly right. This has been the roughest stock market globally, I think I've read, since 2008. And there's nothing about the fundamentals. When you look at the debt ratio that this country is in, you're very familiar with the so-called silent decade of Japan that began in the 90s that has turned into a silent quarter of a century. That began when the debt ratio equaled the GDP. Well, that happened in the United States now in 2009, where the debt is now higher than the GDP. It leads to economic malaise that's long-term, protracted, and very hard to reverse.
Right, but if you look at my book, Second Chance, what I do is I put words into pictures. And one of the most important pictures in Second Chance is 120 years of the Dow Jones Industrial Average. And when you look at those pictures, you know, if you don't find religion pretty quickly...
Yep, absolutely. I'd like you to go into more detail after the break about...
We've had three major market crashes since the year 2000. Mm-hmm. When you look in Second Chance at the picture of the Dow, and you look at the crash of 1929, we've had three major crashes since 2000 to 2010. One was the dot-com, subprime, and then the 2008 crash.
Robert Kiyosaki.
If you're sitting there going, I'm going to keep doing the same thing, I think that's where fear kicks in for most people, and that's why you need to balance your emotions, greed and fear.
Robert Kiyosaki is our guest. He's the author of Second Chance, a new book, very important book. I love everything you've written that I've read, which I think is most of the books you've written. My favorite still remains, even though I love Second Chance, is Cash Flow Quadrant, because it really paints the strategy on how to make that shift from poverty to affluence. But I love everything you do, and I'm so glad we get to chat about it here on The Price of Business. Do want to remind the listener, the show continues 24/7 at priceofbusiness.com. We've got hundreds of great interviews there for you, and we'll have more for you right after this on the Biz TV Network.